Welcome to today's webinar entitled Home Visiting as a Bridge, Supporting Resettled Families Through Transition and Growth. All registered participants will receive a PDF of this presentation after the webinar, as well as a link to the accompanying visual report. As we get started, we invite you to put your name and organization in the chat so we have a sense of who is in our virtual room. Also, we'd love to hear your insights as the webinar progresses to inform what additional evidence would be helpful, how you might use this information, and questions you may have that help inform our future research and content development. So please use the Q&A function throughout the webinar. To get us started, we have a poll to share with you.
Thank you. So we have a question for everyone attending this webinar. So I will read out the question and you can select one from these answer choices. So what do you think most supports sustain family engagement in programs serving youth, children, and families? So the options include trusting relationship, flexibility in service delivery, concrete supports, cultural responsiveness, and clear expectation. So you can choose one and submit the poll. Thank you, everyone, for participating. So I'll read out the result. It seems like close to 80%, the majority selected trusting relationships. And then the others include flexibility in service delivery, concrete supports, cultural responsiveness, and clear expectations. So all these were selected, but it seems like the majority of you selected trusting relationships. And we get to, talk a little bit more about engagement during our webinar. So stay tuned and thank you everyone for participating in the poll.
Everyone was on the mark. This work would not have been possible without our research team reflected on this slide, so we are excited to get started. My name is Amy Hilado. I'm an assistant professor at the University of Chicago Crown Family School and director of the Refugee Wellness Lab. I was also the co-PI on the study you'll hear today. I'm joined by my colleagues at Chapin Hall who will introduce themselves.
Hello, everyone. My name is Reiko Kakuyama-Villiver. I'm a researcher at Chapin Hall, and I served as a co-PI with Amy on this study. John?
Hi, I'm John Korfmacher. I'm a senior research fellow at Chapin Hall, and I was on this project as a consultant.
Thanks, everyone. Now, to get started, the science is clear. The early years matter, and we must be invested in supporting young children and their parents, their caregivers, who are central to their growth and development. Infant early childhood mental health is the developing capacity of children from age birth to 5 to form secure relationships, to manage emotions and learn. It's social emotional well-being that drives all other areas of development. Most critically, infant early childhood mental health develops in the context of healthy, attuned caregiving relationships. It's about supporting the adult caregivers by helping to strengthen their capacity to nurture children, and in doing so, we are supporting mental health and connection within families. Home visitors play an important role here as critical supports and resources in times when vulnerabilities can impair the caregiver-child relationship in ways that have a lasting impact on all members. Resettled families face particular risks based on their immigration circumstances. The stressors that drive people to leave their home countries, their experiences in transit, and experiences adjusting to life in the United States have a cumulative impact on caregivers, children, and the ability for families to connect with one another. The current anti-immigrant climate is especially hard for new and long-standing immigrant and refugee communities because it threatens one's sense of safety, security, and belonging, which is essential for general well-being. Already, we are seeing the adverse effects on families who are overwhelmed, and babies and toddlers who also feel the weight of overwhelm, showing us through their behaviors of being easily startled, withdrawn, clingy, in ways that are outside the bounds of typical development. Without prevention and intervention supports for child and family, these children may face steeper challenges as they continue to mature. Despite these risks, it is important to remember that risk is not fate, and this applies to all families. Exposure to risk, trauma, or adversity of any type does not equate with automatic poor life outcomes. For the diverse families we engaged in our study, they were not defined by trauma or adversity, but instead we could see and hear their stories of resilience and a desire to belong and contribute. Now, home visiting has had a long history of promoting early childhood and family outcomes because by design, it prioritizes the importance of caregiver-child relationships. It opens the door for conversations about mental health and resources, and risk and adversity are often uncovered in the initial screening or through the relationship that's built over time. Home visiting has been known for all the benefits you see on the slide here. Beyond these documented benefits, the Baby Talk family engagement model in particular has been known for its culturally responsive, flexible, and relational approach to engaging diverse families, and these are important qualities of early childhood programming. In 2017, I led a randomized controlled trial examining the impact of Baby Talk home visiting in a Chicago-based refugee resettlement program. We engaged 200 refugee families from 12 countries speaking 9 languages, and I'm glad to see representation from Refugee One here today. 94% of the families used public benefits, 64% of parents had less than a high school degree, and many had been displaced for over 9 years before arriving in the United States. We learned that refugee children in Baby Talk home visiting had statistically significant gains in language development in comparison to refugee children who were not enrolled in services. Parental stress, parent trauma symptoms, community connections, positive parenting behaviors, and child social emotional development all tracked in a positive direction for those receiving Baby Talk home visiting, though the indicators did not reach statistical significance. The finding was promising. The very first RCT using the Baby Talk model with refugee families, a group that's often absent in rigorous research. But the study, however, represented one Baby Talk program. We wanted to understand whether the results were unique or cross-cutting among other programs serving diverse families across immigration status and length of time in the country. So I pass the floor now to Reiko to share more details about our current study.
Thank you, Amy. So next we share key lessons from our study. Launched in 2023, the study examines how home visiting programs support newly resettled and long-standing immigrant and refugee families. We used the sequential mixed methods, which allowed us to collect quantitative and qualitative data in distinct phases. The quantitative phase included program data from 898 Illinois families participating in the Baby Talk model. And findings from this phase informed the qualitative study, shaping interview questions and analytic focus. We conducted interviews with program directors, home visitors, and parents. And drawing from the quantitative data and qualitative narratives, we examined various topics, including child development, parent well-being, resource connection, program implementation and family engagement, and families' integration into new communities as they navigate unfamiliar systems while parenting and building new lives. And Amy and I will walk you through the results in more detail shortly. The program data helped us understand who are the families represented in our study. As you see on the left-hand side, we see a wide range of language representation. The majority of families spoke either English or Spanish, and Arabic was the third most spoken language at home. If you look at the right side of the screen, we see that the majority of parents, close to 65%, were married, while single parents and unmarried parents were also well represented. Next slide, please. Family income ranged from less than $5,000 to over $100,000 annually. The most common income range was between $20,000 and $30,000, representing the largest proportion of families. And there is a wide range of education levels attained by the head of household in our sample. Most of the participants obtained a high school diploma or less, while those who had bachelor's degree were also represented. Many families participate in home visiting services for extended periods, often spanning several years. And families often enroll multiple children, either concurrently or by enrolling a newborn after an older child completes the program. On average, families in our sample remained engaged for 28 months, and that's over 2 years. And families had 46 home visits on average, including both personal and group encounters. This level of sustained engagement is notable given that early childhood programs often struggle to maintain long-term participation. And although direct comparison across program models are limited, our findings suggest stronger retention than many comparable programs. Clinical programs, for example, often experience rapid disengagement. One study found 45% of youth dropped out within 30 days, with average session frequency under once per month. Prior research, although Baby Talk is not a clinical program, families often describe the accompaniment as therapeutic. And so prior research links longer-term engagement to flexible and relationship-based models that don't impose strict time limits. And Baby Talk's flexible, relationship-centered approach aligns with these successful models. And here's a short video about the study featuring a family and a home visitor in one of the Baby Talk program sites. They generously shared how home visiting has impacted immigrant and refugee communities. So let's watch this together.
The home visiting study that we are conducting is for families that have children birth to 3, so families with very young children. And when I think about how babies need to learn how to walk and talk, resettled families also have to learn how to navigate new communities, new cultures, unfamiliar systems.
We really focused on the partnership to support the well-being of children, learning more about how home visitings can support the families, newly resettled and long-standing families in our communities.
Oftentimes, when families rebuild their life in a new country, they leave behind a lot of support networks that were so critical for them. And so they lean on home visiting programs to fill a social void. These are programs that connect them with resources. They are people who answer questions that help these newly resettled families navigate their daily life. They needed extra supports other than families that have older children because the unique needs of babies and toddlers required a different type of attention.
For this family in specific, for Balqis family, I think she came for the event of Women's Day. I was looking for a family to enroll and I saw her. And then I told her, I would like to make a visit. What do you think? I would like just to visit you and get to know you. She testified to that. She wrote a letter saying how much of a difference that these home visits made in her family's life.
Okay, this was Lord.
مرحبا، أنا أم ل3 أطفال. دخلت لأمريكا هون من 1.5 سنة. كانت البداية عندي صعبة جدا بسبب أني كنت بالأردن أعيش بين أهلي وأصدقائي. هون اختلف الحال، أصبحت لا أحب الخروج من البيت، ولكن بعد فترة قصيرة أتت إلى منزل منار لكي تخبرنا بزياراتها الشهرية لتتابع تطور النمو عند ابن الصغير أمير. إنني وجدت الفرق الكبير مع النشاطات والجهد من كلا الجهتين. تطور النطق والفكر عند أمير أصبح أفضل بكثير، ولا أقدر أوصف هذا مدى استفادتي من هذا الجروب. الآن وبعد 1.5 سنة من وجودي هنا تغيرت نظرتي للحياة كثيرا. أصبحت المرأة القوية التي كنت أتمناه وما زلت أصبح أقوى وأقوى. أشكرك منار، أشكر اهتمامك للطفل. ما تفعليه للطفل الآن سيجعله أقوى ذو ثقة في المستقبل. شكرا لك.
She was able to overcome her fears, the fear of leaving home. Now she leaves home with the confidence and now she's able to take the public transportation. I'm so proud of her. And those socialization, because she was meeting with, it's a group of other participants in the home visiting, and they would all come together. And I like how each one of them, they thought that I'm not the only one who's feeling that challenge. There are others as well. That connection that they are bringing together, that started building their community.
So when a support system like home visiting is in place, you see that it really empowers the family. I mean, the home visiting, it really meets families where they are and walk with them through their journey. And they now have safe space to be curious and share their needs or voice their concerns with their home visitors because they trust them, and they can use their strength and explore a broader perspective of what active roles they can play in making informed decisions and showing up for their child and for their families in their new community. Through their voices, we witness the strength of families navigating unfamiliar systems, the dedication of those that are supporting them, and the quiet yet powerful ways in which lives are being rebuilt with dignity, care, and hope.
And so investing in high-quality early childhood programs, that's an investment in our future. And that's what I'm hoping comes from this study, that we realize that services like this, these are investments in our future, and we should all feel invested in these communities. I can watch that video over and over again. Home visiting is about relationships, connection, and helping resettled families integrate into our communities. Part of the mechanisms that support this transition is the ways in which home visitors connect families with resources. Our study team reviewed the family resource assessment data used in Baby Talk programs to track family needs. The tool was administered every 6 months with enrolled families. Now, on the next 2 slides, they show the top 13 resources resettled families prioritize as needing most. The top row refers to the resource, the need that was indicated in the first 6 months of engagement, and then the bottom row refers to that same resource ranked at 18 to 24 months from enrollment. Access to basic needs, food, clothing, medical contacts, access to schools, training programs were critical in the first months of enrollment, and that's where home visitors placed their attention. By months 18 to 24, the priority of these initial needs decreased, suggesting stabilization in families, as initial needs were met and families had an improved ability to navigate with the basic orientation they received from home visiting services. Resettled families across immigration status still prioritized English language training and immigration supports as top priorities across the time frame. Yet overall, the shifts you see in this graph reflect that home visitors' core role, the core role of coming alongside, which is a lovely Baby Talk concept, is there, front and center, connecting families to resources that help them independently navigate daily life. Now, as Reiko mentioned, families stayed engaged in home visiting for a long time. The slower exit rates amongst families enrolled in Baby Talk programs indicate resettled families continue to find value in a sustained partnership with a responsive home visitor. So our team was interested in why families stay engaged, and the process within home visiting that keeps families engaged. Using data recorded on the personal encounter forms, we reviewed data on 898 families across 9 programs, over 47,000 home visiting records across a 3-year period. There are 10 strategies that are recorded on the personal encounter form that's completed after every home visit. And we used a time to event model or Cox regression analysis to examine the strategies that promote, limit, or had neutral no effects on program engagement. The use of the 4 Baby Talk strategies listed here reduced the likelihood of families exiting the program. It was a statistically significant finding, meaning the findings are not random and the strategies are predictive of program retention. And the strategies were beginning the session with the prompt, "Tell me about your baby," focusing on family functioning and well-being, acknowledging predictable child development touch points, milestones with the family, and using objective language during sessions. These strategies prioritize parent voice and use straightforward communication to center child and family well-being. Use of the baby talk strategies focusing on meaning making and narrating behavior increase the likelihood of families exiting the program, another statistically significant finding. And then home visits that focused on child or parent mastery, focusing on the process or using the pivot, meaning addressing a caregiver concern and then linking it to child development or behavior. These strategies had no significant effects on program retention or attrition. The findings suggest that the strategies may have been acceptable, but not essential to parents when applied. Now, as you hear this, we want to emphasize that the findings are less about which strategies are most helpful, unhelpful. We're not trying to label these strategies as good or bad. The Cox analysis showed that while individual strategies did influence engagement patterns, the effects were modest and cumulative over time. Remember that families stayed engaged for 28 months on average, and that is quite impressive. What the findings do is it presents an opportunity to reflect on a family's long-term participation and the goodness of fit between the program models, the strategies, and the family's needs over time. Along this line, it calls for more attunement on the part of home visitors and professionals to ensure that the work, the strategies, the focus of the visits matches where parents and families are emotionally and psychologically at any given time. Now, the silver lining of early childhood work is that mismatches will always happen. Mismatches can be repaired and growth can persist so long as we stay tuned into what's in the room and we are ready to address it.
Another important source of data for this study was the voices of the baby talk participants and those who support them. In total, our team spoke with 5 program directors, 14 home visitors, and 16 parents across 5 baby talk program sites. And among the 16 parents interviewed, 8 languages were spoken at home, including Spanish, Arabic, Swahili, and some parents spoke multiple languages at home. Spanish was the most commonly spoken language, and we summarized key themes and messages about families. We identified several cross-cutting themes. One central finding was that the culturally sensitive approaches drive family engagement. In the baby talk model, culturally sensitive home visiting supports strong trust-based relationship between families and home visitors. Home visitors shared that listening closely, especially early on, is crucial. Families shared that they felt truly heard and described home visitors as genuinely committed to building trust. This trust made it easier for families to communicate their needs more openly, allowing home visitors to respond with flexibility and tailor support to families' priorities. This kind of responsiveness helped families feel that both their emotional and material needs were being met, reinforcing a culturally responsive model that fostered long-term engagement. Now we will look at some of the key themes that emerged from the interview data. So the first theme, parents shared that home visiting expanded how that they think about parenting, including how to understand and respond to common child behaviors and who can be part of a child's caregiving. Home visitors create space for parents to strengthen their parenting identities by embracing home culture and beliefs around parenting, while supporting them in learning and adopting new strategies in ways that align with their values and current context. And the second theme, on family-centered approach. One Baby Talk home visitor shared that parents come to Baby Talk program for many different reasons, motivations, and hopes as they seek to support their children and families. For many families, home visiting became an important source of social support in their new communities. Now, home visitors meet families where they are and guide and scaffold them by responding to their needs and provide a range of support from concrete support to emotional or relational support to promote their children's health and family well-being. The next theme is around parents' capacity. Parents described how home visiting has helped them deepen their understanding of child development and take more active roles in advocating for their children's growth. Home visitors highlighted supporting parents' sense of confidence and mastery in raising their children through mutual relationships and family-centered practices. In the next theme, parents highlighted that leaving their home countries often led to significant loss of social support networks. And in this context, parents were especially grateful for the support that home visitors provided in the area of child development, maternal mental health, and emotional well-being. And here's a quote of a parent that illustrates how home visitors are experienced as trusted source of consistent support, especially in time of transition or uncertainty. I most like when there are people, a real human being is with me, listening to me or accompanying me, because the papers, I do read those and everything, and I try to practice them. But I feel like support, their voice, their ear are so much more powerful than the papers. Additional parent quotes are available in the visual report. In the absence of familiar social support and cultural disconnection, many resettled families describe feeling of isolation and uncertainty as they parent in a new country. In communities with limited social connections, many parents deeply value the support from home visitors, offering a consistent space where parents can focus on their children's future and well-being. And in this safe space, parents explore ideas about how to support their children's physical and emotional health while adjusting to life in a new country. And here's a quote from a parent who reflected on this vision. I want my children to be good people too. I don't want them to always be happy because I have gone through that as well. The act of going through sad things makes people stronger, so I don't want their path to be easy. I want them to fall so that they can arise. I don't know how to express it, but I want them to stumble so that they become strong. As resettled families seek self-sufficiency and meaningful connections in a new community, they often rely on home visiting programs as a key source of support. Home visiting helps families build the skills needed to navigate education, healthcare, and daily life independently. Welcoming communities and targeted support programs play a vital role in helping newly arrived families feel at home. And this sense of belonging is key to their adjustment and continued community building for refugee and immigrant families. What often came up during the interview was that the broader community system of support is critical for successful resettlement and integration into a new cultural context. The quote on this slide from a program director reflects this vision. We must recognize their value to society, their value to the country and our neighborhood and school community, and help them feel welcome.
Together, the results of the mixed method study point to the importance of relationships. In the words of one of 0 to 3's founding board members, Jury Paul, how you are is as important as what you do. The heart, passion, and care home visitors share with their families matters just as much as the curriculum and strategies employed in visits. And this came through our research. Families and home visitors emphasize that it's not simply the strategies themselves, but also the quality of the relationships, the trust, the flexibility, the responsiveness of the home visitor that kept families engaged over extended service periods. Now, how can these study findings be used to inform current and future work in early childhood? First, data will always be important. Program data allows us to understand the experiences of families in critical services like home visiting. Session-level details are important for tracking trends and needs and incremental changes. And to complement that data piece, we encourage the use and completion of standardized instruments, developmental mental health trauma screeners, for example. Documenting completion and termination dates and the reason for exits is also important to fully understand the scope of services received. The study findings also have clear implications for the workforce. The workforce cannot be responsive to family needs if the workforce is struggling with compassion fatigue and burnout. The study also offers a call to leadership to be mindful of the ways in which implicit and explicit bias shape interactions, and to take steps to prevent those from eroding trust within the home visitor family relationship. And lastly, training and supervision should continue to emphasize relational skills as a foundation for effective home visiting, so that home visitors apply strategies in ways that complement rather than overshadow the relationship. Attention to how strategies are balanced and applied over time with intention, particularly for resettled families who may be navigating adjustment stressors, may help sustain engagement over the whole service window. And lastly, we know that ongoing technical assistance can support the areas we mentioned around data, burnout, and addressing bias. Overall, we appreciate the opportunity to learn about a model that had this vision for families. We envision a society in which all families are engaged in trustworthy relationships to ensure child well-being and positive outcomes for families. It's a vision I believe we can all get behind. Now, for early childhood programs serving culturally and linguistically diverse families, attention to the current immigration context is important. Safety in accessing resources, being a consistent, trustworthy partner takes on a whole new meaning and value for families that are affected by the current climate. Your sensitivity to these issues will promote engagement and ultimately outcomes for family and children in programs. Now, to zoom out, I'll pass the floor to my colleague John to walk us through the broader landscape of home visiting research.
Hi, I'm just going to take a few minutes to put the study into a larger context. So, how does this work fit into the landscape of home visiting research? Well, one way is that it highlights that home visiting programs need to be ready for all kinds of families. As the results show, a one-size-fits-all approach does not fit the modern reality of families. It has been remarked that home visiting is one of the most examined human services in the past 20 or 30 years, and there have been many, many, many randomized trials and other experiments to quote unquote prove that home visiting works. The vast majority of outcome studies that have been done show that home visiting does work, but that the results are often modest. The effects are significant, but not huge. The outcomes may be more scattered than is often hoped. And an unfortunate constraint of these outcome studies is that by their very design, they assume an average type of participant who then gets compared to an average family who does not get home visiting. And this kind of comparison, it ignores the rich complexity across family experiences that was demonstrated today in this study. Because of this lack of precision, it kind of makes sense then that we are finding only modest results across our randomized trials. And so we have to think about shifting the question from does home visiting work to how does it work for whom and under what circumstances? There is a national home visiting research network called HARC that I'm part of, and our focus is on precision home visiting. So unpacking what are the active ingredients or the special sauce that makes home visiting work. So we need more studies like this that can really drill down on the specific elements of programs that families value. A related question is how do we support home visitors so that they're best able to adapt to the changing needs of the families they serve? As this study showed, home visitors are the heart of a home visiting program, and home visiting is hard work. So we need to better understand what home visitors need, what their needs are in terms of training, professional development, and their own well-being. The federally funded Institute for Home Visiting Workforce Development is launching a national agenda focused on the profession of home visiting and increasing our understanding of how to best support those who do this work. And this is going to be especially crucial as the work of home visiting becomes even more complex. And then just the last thing I will note is that home visiting in Illinois is undergoing a big systems change. It is all being folded under a new state Department of Early Childhood. The goal of the department is to better integrate our early childhood service system and for early childhood services to be better coordinated with other systems such as health and education. So hopefully in all of this, home visiting will be able to benefit from this. One of the primary functions of a home visitor is connecting families to needed community services. Engaging in service referral, you could almost think of it as case management. And this is one of the areas we know least about how home visitors do this work. And as the study showed today, this is an important part, especially for immigrant and new families who might otherwise feel very isolated within their communities. So studies like the one you just heard are an incredibly important piece of the puzzle. And I think I'm turning this back to Amy.
Yes, thank you, John. And so as we close out our session, this is the QR code to access the visual report for the study. Again, this report link will be shared with you after the webinar is completed. This slide provides contact information for our study team. Also will be available in a PDF version of the slide deck that will be sent to you, and key references from our webinar. Now with that, I will stop my share and we will open the floor for Q&A. We've tried to be good about answering questions in the Q&A forum, but we now open the floor for the larger audience. Okay, so now looking at our questions, thank you, John, for answering some of them. I did provide a response as well. We have a question from Mirna. Where can we learn more about the professional qualities a home visitor should have and grow in order for home visiting to be successful? There was a previous question about the Baby Talk model, and we want to name that there are a number of national models that support home visiting. Each has its curriculum, each has its training programs that provide a framework for how we think about professional development in this space. And so the models are a first guide in terms of what are the qualities we look for. Our research points out to key elements around building trust and flexibility. I pass the floor to my co-presenters. Any other ideas of where folks can get more information about how to be an effective home visitor?
Well, I would say a great resource that outlines the kind of different knowledge, skills, and competencies that home visitors should have it's an online resource called the Institute for the Advancement of Family Support Professionals, IAFSFP. This was another initially federally funded project, and it provides online modules that home visitors and other family support professionals can take to build their skills, but also includes a compass so people can kind of individualize their learning. And if you look through that, you will see the different topics that get covered, and you'll see the kind of the breadth of experiences and abilities that home visitors need to know to do their jobs well. Home visiting is hard work. I sometimes joke it's a little bit like how MacGyver would sometimes could rescue a busload of orphans by using like a paperclip and some tin foil. Home visitors also have to be able to have a lot of knowledge and be able to do a lot, sometimes with very limited resources.
Thank you for that. I think we could probably do one more question before we go into final remarks. And for those of you that did type questions into the Q&A, we will do our best to answer them live. Otherwise, we will follow up afterwards, if possible, if your information is available. There is a question about educational background for home visitors. And in looking at your names and organizations, we have national representation on this webinar, which is fantastic. We would have to point out that every city, every state, every model has its own recommended requirements, and states also have specific requirements for being a home visitor. So in speaking to Illinois, which is where we are situated, there are education requirements, at least an associate's degree with opportunities for professional development to get a bachelor's degree in early childhood. There are accommodations as we think about language and cultural congruence, but certainly there are education requirements, there are supervision requirements and cross models. There are also ongoing training and professional development opportunities that are fully recommended. Any other feedback, any other remarks that the panel wants to chime in around education background as well as requirements? And yes, parents can also get this training.
This might not be a direct answer to this question. This is a very good, important question. I think try to understand, those, workforce level data, including, like Amy said, the language, match between home visitors and families, for example, or the professional background of home visitors. Those are important, things, for us to further understand when we conduct study like this, because that can also shape engagement and service delivery. and try to further understand how home visiting work for whom, including families with diverse, culturally diverse backgrounds. So thank you for that question.
Now, as we close our session today, we'd like to share some final takeaways from this project. John, could you get us started? Oh, John, I think you're still muted.
Sorry, I didn't mean to be muted. Amy alluded to this earlier. We are living in a very politicized climate right now, but I think the simplest message is best. All families need support, and with support, all families can thrive. And home visiting can be an important part of this support.
Thank you, John. Over to you, Reiko.
Yeah, I also believe that we must center community expertise through the research process, including practitioners' on-the-ground knowledge and trusted relationship with families. And when we partner meaningfully with communities, our findings become more relevant, more actionable, and more respectful. And we're better positioned to support child development and family well-being together.
And I'm
Amy?
building those remarks, yes. Given the importance of the early years, we must continue to uplift diverse voices for very young children and their families to ensure that their experiences and needs are reflected across programs, across research, and policies. It has been a pleasure spending part of our day with you. Thank you for registering for this webinar. And again, follow-up information about the webinar, the link to the recording, the PDF, as well as the visual report are there. Please connect with us if you have additional questions and have a great rest of the week. Thank you, everyone.